Something I've been thinking a lot about recently is about how science gets corrupted when science is not done for its own sake. I think actually, I've been thinking about this a lot too. I think I want to rebrand myself as a scientist, as a prospective scientist, not a philosopher, because what I'm doing is science. And I guess it's the same thing, but that's sort of besides the point. I think people think of the scientific process when they think of science. They don't think of that when they think of philosophy. And the reason that it's so important to do science for its own sake is because I think that science is, how do I put this? It's like a natural outgrowth of the evolutionary process. I think literally evolution was questing, branching, until it could make a species that was capable of doing science. And I think science, and if for whatever reason humanity fails and doesn't persist, another species will pick up where we left off and do science. And I think that's what evolution is trying to do, is evolve continuously forever. And it's totally obvious that science is going to be a part of that process if it's humans doing the science or not. And the problem is that when you do science for other reasons other than science, science gives you power, right? And a lot of people do science for power. And the problem with that is that when you do science for power, when you get the power that you want, however much you want, then you stop doing science. The science suffers, or science slows, and the growth stops. And it's critical that you do growth for its own sake, not for the power that comes, because I think power is arbitrary, but also just if you limit yourself to however much power you think you want right now, in the future you're going to want more power, and but you will have already stopped your growth if you focused on doing science for the power. You have to do science for its own sake and focus on the growth. You have to do it for the continuous growth and expansion. That has to be your reason for doing science. And so it's very interesting to me because I've been doing this stuff for a while now, where I am taking a scientific approach to a lot of things that a lot of people want to learn how to do. So you can use this approach for making money. You can also use this approach for learning to be good with people, and I'm thinking about how much I have in common with pickup artists, and yet at the same time not at all, because I want to learn to talk to women. Absolutely have a lot in common with pickup artists there. But when pickup artists are done learning how to talk with women, they're done, and I'm not done. I'm just that's just the beginning, I'm trying to be as powerful a person as I possibly can be. And so I've always assumed that my next thing after being the best at meeting women possible ever is probably going to be money. Although it's changing a little bit, because it's also recently come to my attention that I want to live well. I want power, not for its own sake, but because I want to live well. I'm trying to do the science of living well, science of having a good life, and power is a huge part of that equation. I want options. I want, but I also want to grow. I think the growth is the point. It's literally that's the thing you should prioritize, because that's it's what brings all the other things that are cool and good to you. It's focusing on growth. And if you focus on the other things and you only want to grow enough to get those other things, then you will stall, and your life won't be as good after that. You have to focus on the growth. The growth is the point. It's the meat. It's the and so it's come to my attention that people who focus on money are not focusing on how to live well, because you definitely can live very well if you have a lot of money, but also living well has almost nothing to do with money. Living well is a philosophy, and you can live well with any amount of money, none or a lot. It doesn't really matter. And there's a million ways of approaching, reaching that sort of homeostasis of having a good life, living well. And there are, I think, a few, that Venn diagram of like living well and also having a lot of money is actually pretty narrow. Like for the most part, like living well doesn't have a lot to do with having a lot of money. And also like I think having a lot of money can actually get in the way of living well. It like you can have gilded chains, you know, and there's a lot of like philosophical versions of gilded chains where people have beliefs that prevent them from living well, and they might think that they're living well, you know, or like, you know, like they have beliefs that like sort of validate their desire to be comfortable, and so they stop learning and growing and developing, and then they stop exploring, and then they start to atrophy. And then you get this like old people problem, you know, like the problem with old people is that they have done exactly that. They atrophy, you know, they stop learning and growing, exploring, doing stuff, and they fall by the wayside, and then they, you know, and they fizzle out. And I think that that's like the saddest thing that could happen. I mean, that's just my personal opinion, but also like, I think like what it means to live well is to focus on all of the stuff, on the growth. And that's what keeps your life good until it ends. So I don't know. I'm not really sure. Like, I thought for a long time I was going to be very focused on making money after I finished like learning social skills. And now I'm not sure that I am. I think that like, I'm going to follow the science. You know, I'm going to follow like, like the power. I want power, I want options. I want flexibility, you know, and whatever brings me the most power and options and flexibility is what I'm going to focus on. And it might be money at some point, but I doubt it will be permanently money, you know. It's probably going to be like best perspective and like best knowledge, perspective, connections. Probably like, you know, money is always going to be a part of the equation, but I think it's also equally obvious that like there are diminishing returns to focusing on having the most money, and maybe I will evolve further and, you know, find something that is that justifies having the most money, but so far I haven't found that. I just think that like I'm trying to live well, and I think like in order to do that I have to focus on science and keep the science first, you know, keep the growth and the expansion first. That's the most important thing.